Kokatnoor for giving me this opportunity for heading the technical sessions in their webinar related to COVID-19, the challenges that are faced by the higher education institutions. I have already been introduced, and I would again congratulate the team of RB Kokatnoor sir for having arranged this webinar, which is really helpful for the vast number of faculties who are now grounded at home and trying to adapt themselves to online teaching and use of technology. Okay, I have a small presentation for this seminar, and I would like to share my contents here. I hope my these PPTs are available to you. Hello?
Sir, is it visible, sir?
Yeah, it's visible. Right? Yeah. I hope my slides are visible.
Sure, sir. It is
okay.
Visible, sir.
If you have any doubts, let me know so that I can just stop and little deal it in more detail. Okay. So the topic that has been assigned to me and the topic of the webinar has been on the post-COVID-19 challenges on higher education. Okay. Like I have been already introduced that I am Professor Vinod Samrani from Kausal Institute of Management Studies, Karnataka University, Dharwad. And let's begin, not wasting much of the time. Let's begin with our presentation, small presentation I have here, and start with how the world has been devastating. World has come to a stand-stop. The world is hit by a nightmare, and it is in the form of coronavirus. It's called a novel coronavirus because the DNA strain has been little different, as identified by the Batwoman from China, who said that this virus has a different kind of a DNA, and it stands for COVID, stands for coronavirus December 19. That's why it is called COVID-19, and it has got a new strain of the DNA structure, and which is for which there is no medicine as such. Okay, and this virus we already know that this virus has stopped the overall functionality. World has come to a standstill. Take it America, take it Italy, take it India, take China, take Germany, take Russia, take the UK. All have come to a standstill. People are worried because it is highly contagious, and a lot of problems are happening. The Harvard research says that 60% of the global population will be affected, and there would be death. About 42 million people would die, which is a huge number, and people are working to find a cure for this virus. Even Patanjali, our Ayurvedic medicine, is also trying to say that they have come up with a cure which really helps people to overcome this virus. Hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir, audible.
Am I audible? Yeah. Somebody hint me in between so that I should know whether I am being heard or not.
It is audible, sir.
Somebody hint me in the middle. Somebody hint that if you say yes, then I will be able to understand that I'm being heard.
Okay. Sure.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, I'll feel that I'm only talking and nobody is hearing. Okay?
No. It is audible, sir.
Yeah. Somebody say yes in between so that I can understand.
Okay, sir. Okay, sure.
Let me move ahead and say that the coronavirus, statistics that is given by the World Health Organization, and we say that we are in this 4th position as of now, and it says 3,32,424. That is a little old statistics. Today, I think morning we could see that it is 3,43,080 number of people who have been affected in India. Okay, in Karnataka, it is about 7,213 people have been affected, and day by day statistics are changing. So we cannot really say this statistics is correct, or it is we can accept this as it is. So every day it is changing so fast that numbers are changing, policies are changing, people are being affected. A lot of things are changing day to day. We cannot say there is a fixed thing. So even the statistics is also not fixed. It might change. We feel that India might reach a position of 3rd or 2nd. Okay, and days are not very far that India might have a huge number of COVID patients. Okay, so as of now, we were in the 11th position when last month or last 2 months back. But today, if you see, we are in the 4th position, and days are not very far when we might, go to position number 3 or 2. Okay. But ironically, China has a fewer number of cases as of now. But there's also recent news that there's a second wave of coronavirus in China, Wuhan city. Okay, but look at the percentage. If you compare with other countries, the percentage has come down drastically. They are able to manage this COVID case, and very surprisingly is that 90% of the Chinese economy is back. It is refunctioning, whereas all other countries' economy has stand still and they're not performing well. And the GDP has come down. The money has been running into problems. Market has running into problems. Industries are having problems. Okay, so let us see some effects on the global economy. What has been said by big institutions like World Economic Forum? It says that this has been global economy has been faster and more severe than the financial crisis of 2008 and even the Great Depression that happened in 1930. Okay, and International Monetary Fund is also saying that is expected to shrink by 3%. Global economy is expected to shrink by 3%, which is the steepest since 1930s Great Depression. 10 million employees are going to be laid off. The World Economic Forum is saying there would be a lot of unemployment that is related because of COVID. Okay, and
A request to the Vinod Samran sir. Sir,
yeah,
is it audible with you, sir?
yeah, it's audible.
Sure, sir. Please continue, sir.
Yeah. Earlier in the last 50 years, healthcare and higher education were least affected. But this time, I think it is going to be severely affected, both healthcare and higher education. We have already been seeing it. The healthcare sector has been in tight position. They were not ready for this kind of COVID-19 situation, where it was difficult to handle them. You must have seen also in the news that in Mumbai and New Delhi, hospitals are crowded, and they are now taking hotels and other resorts for treating patients and all those things. Higher education is in great problems. Okay. Travel and tourism also has been severely affected. You can see that almost 3% of tourism industry is going to close this time, and Indian government has suspended all tourist and e-visas or a lot of things related to tourism. Tourism is totally closed, and people who are making money, those states which were dependent on tourism only as a source of income, are suffering a lot. Okay, and the effect on Indian economy has been, like FICCI says that there is a tremendous uncertainty. Okay, our own institutions like FICCI has told that there is a tremendous uncertainty among industries and firms. They don't know what the future is stored for them. Okay, since economic activities of the firms are not happening, there's a reduction of manpower. So a lot of people are being laid off, and people are losing their job, losing their income. Along with that, they don't know how to support their family. Okay, and those expansion plans which the companies had, which were approved by their boards, have been deferred maybe for next 6 to 12 months, or in some cases beyond 12 months. They are all waiting to see how the economy is going to change, how the economy is going to be affected, and what all they need to do. Okay, major sectors that have been affected are like logistics have been affected severely, or supply chain has been disrupted. Okay, automobile has been affected tremendously because you're not available, you're not getting spare parts. I think I remember reading, this Land Rover bought spare parts from China in suitcases and then assembled their vehicles in their factories. Okay, because the supply chain was totally out. Your transportation system was in totally stopped. People were not allowed to move around. The logistics was in huge problems. Tourism has totally come down. Metals, drug markets, pharmaceutical, electronic goods, MSMEs, on retail, all of them have been severely affected. But one very important thing we can see here is in all the sector, China has got a major role to play. If you talk about electronics, China has been a part of it. China supplies components, electronic components, goods to the manufacturer. If you talk about automobile industries, China supplies a lot of components to automobile industry. So whatever happens China is definitely going to affect India also. So Indian economy is also in a lot of problems. There will be sizable impact on the economy because of the consumption. Okay, consumption has come down drastically. People are not ready to spend money. They don't want to get out. They are afraid. They are misguided with a lot of unwanted information, and consumption has been severely affected. And which is the biggest component of GDP according to KPMG, which is a consulting body across the world. And KPMG India has says that the lockdown that has been imposed in India has going to have an impact on the consumption, which is going to be huge. Okay, and there could be damages, permanent damages to large section of industries if government does not come out with a economic package so that the industries can again work on their strategies and come back and take the opportunity of the market. Okay, so these are some of the effects on the Indian economy. And some of the the forecast for this year 2021 as given by the many agencies across the world and in India also suggest that the growth rate is going to the GDP growth rate is going to shrink by 5% this year. Okay, we have our own SBI research which says that minus 6.8%. We have ICRA, you have CRISIL which says it's minus 5%. Okay, so Asian Development Bank is on a positive side. It says it is 4%. It's going to be on the positive side. But our own CII says that it's minus 0.9 to 1%, and India rating is minus 2 to 1%. Most of them are saying that the GDP growth rate would shrink by 5% and more. So we are not very clear. So many agencies are forecasting this kind of data that the GDP is going to shrink. Some information since this is more on higher education. So some of the data that we have on data on higher education is given by MHRD is that India's higher education system is world's third largest in terms of students, next to China and United States. Okay. However, the gross enrollment ratio, that is the number of students in a particular age group divided by the number of people in the population in that age group, is very less, 25.2%, which is very less compared to the developed and other developing countries across the world. We have a very very few number of people are getting enrolled, wherein the population is very big, but the number of people in that age group are not getting admitted into higher education. Okay, so the ratio is very small. Okay, as of 2020, India has over 1,000 universities, which a lot of breakups are there, which I don't want to go into the details. Like we have around 402 state universities, we have IIMs, we have IITs, we have IIScs, we have private universities. Okay, we have deemed to be universities and other things. Some important data is that over 750,000 usually go abroad to pursue higher education, which and only mere 48,000 students come to India for higher education. So the inflow is very small and outflow is very high. So we are not much worried about the people who are coming here to study, but we are more worried about people who are going for higher education in India, and that too maybe the rural segment, which is forms the base or the student strength in all higher education institutions across India. Okay, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir, it is audible, sir. Please
Yeah. So effect on higher education because of COVID-19, especially when we talk about going abroad. Many students planning to higher education forced to change plan due to coronavirus. The Hindustan Times says that people are planning. Let us say, let us wait, let us do some other thing this year, and then probably go for higher education in foreign countries. And non-STEM students, like you say, science, technology, engineering, mathematics students who plan to go abroad have dropped their plans to go abroad and study. So these are all going to be a huge number. This is an opportunity for all Indian institutions to catch hold of these people and make them take our own study in our institutions. But provided that we have the right kind of infrastructure, the right kind of faculty, and strength and all those things. So these all students who are planning to go abroad can now become a student of our own universities or our own institutions, provided we have a lot of things. Okay. Otherwise, these would have all gone to other countries and all our money would have gone to these places. Rather, now it is that our money is getting stayed with us only because these people have dropped their plans, and it's a huge number, 750,000 people and more plan to go out of country for studying, which are all now going to stay in our own country, and they could become our own students, provided we all have necessary facilities. Some of the challenges that we are going to have in the education scenario in India is basically colleges and institutions are forced to close and restricting teachers and students. And most of them are converted into quarantine centers. In our own place, we have our university guest houses, student hostels, and all have been converted into quarantine centers, and all students have been sent home. So lack of insight on reopening on future functionality. People are not aware when the institutions will open. Both the management as well as the student fraternity, faculty fraternity are all worried when the normal functionality will be there in the institutions, when it will reopen and all those things. There's a huge confusion on conducting annual examinations and assessments. This is a big problem. Everybody is worried why my exams are not happening, and what will be the institution doing, and a lot of discussions are happening at the government level, at the institutions level. Even the state government, the UGC, the central board are all discussing whether to conduct exams or not. For example, if you take the SSLC exams in Karnataka are being postponed, and people are not sure whether these exams will happen or not happen. Even if they're happening, parents are worried whether can we send our students to examinations and all not. So there are a lot of confusions and ultimately leading to a lot of stress. And there is a huge challenge of infrastructure facilities in I think nor the management of the institutions, nor the faculties, nor the government thought that this kind of situation would come one day, and the existing infrastructure facility would be of no use, and we need to have a different set of facilities wherein we can coordinate with the students who are sitting at home far away, and we are sitting in our home and trying to conduct classes and all those things. KPMG India says that around 37.5 million students and 1.4 million faculties are going to be affected by this crisis. And you have already seen at your own institutions how people have been affected. Not only people, not only students, other faculties members have been affected. Staff has been affected. The management has been affected, and everything is in confusion state. And we don't know what to do. Slowly, we are trying to say that okay, we have one way where we can get back to our academics, try to complete our syllabus, and try to conduct exams in one or the other way, trying to see all those things. We are all coming with some kind of policy decisions, but we still there's a lot of confusion. Okay, some more important challenges that we are as an institutions we are going to see in coming is one of the stakeholders, and I think a lot of people are also being talking about this. When we talk about higher education, in the ecosystem, higher education ecosystem, there are stakeholders. So I have taken main stakeholders, others I have left out. One is the higher education institutions which are highly hit by this COVID-19, and they don't know what to do. And then there is a faculty who is worried, who has been accustomed throughout his life to teach face-to-face interaction, and today you are trying to tell them, no, you have to upgrade yourself and try to go on an online teaching modality. It's suddenly difficult for people to adjust to that, and you have students on the other side who have been from years and from ages that they have come to the institution, and then they come face to face, interact with the faculties, and faculty is not, and most of the time you can see that the students spend most of their lifespan along with teachers, whether it is primary, it is higher education, higher secondary, and in colleges, students spend more time with faculties than with their parents. Sometimes students feel that the you know the faculties are like their parents, and they counsel them, they are guiding them, and most of the time students spend time with the faculties in learning and understanding, sharing their problems, which is missing as of now. Students are in great stress. And we also have the regulatory bodies of the higher education, like the state government is there, the ICT is there, the UGC is there. So they are also is an affected party, and they don't know what to do, and they are coming with policies and regulations to help the higher education ecosystem. And we need to see what is going to happen in coming days. But I think things are falling in place. In the dates are being announced for for 10th standard exams. Dates are being announced for degree exams. Dates are now being announced for entrance exams and other things. So things are slightly falling in place, but there's still a huge worry about this COVID-19 because it is highly contagious. And these are all the players, stakeholders, which are going to be affected by this kind of an ecosystem. Okay, and because of the COVID-19, these are the people who are going to affect it. I'll try to see one by one, and how the educational institutions are being affected, and what they're going to do, and all this. One is the huge stopping in their functioning, because face-to-face activities of higher education has been stopped because of the lockdown. Students are not coming to the college, faculties are not coming to the college. It is highly dangerous stepping outside, and there have been some impacts. There have been some challenges to these institutions. What are these challenges? Is first on their ability to remain active in their academic activities. Suddenly, academic activities have stopped. So students, maybe for a few days, were very happy that colleges are not there. You don't have to study, but over a period of time, they start realizing that, oh, what is happening? We are not able to, get into our academic activities. Our syllabus is not being finished. Our exams are not happening. What will happen to my future? What will happen to my marks card? What will happen to my assessment? How will I get job without a proper assessment? So these all started coming to their mind, and their stress is building up. So the first impact has been on the ability to remain active in their academic activities. Secondly is on the financial stability. So financially, they have been affected strongly because in the form of the fees being paid, the tuition fees that is being collected, the government funding that was supposed to happen, all stopped as of now. Okay, and the third is the education institution had to face the immediate challenge of converting to e-learning modality in the mid semester. I think hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Hearing, sir. Mr. Balamukhu, is there, please.
Somebody has to mute the mic, otherwise it's echoing. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, can I continue?
Yes.
Okay. Please unmute. Please mute your mic, so that otherwise there will be a lot of echo in the background.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
You can proceed, sir.
So, some of the challenges that I am talking about in terms are, one is the to remain academically active is one. Second one has been the financial stability. Secondly, third one is a challenge to convert themselves into an e-learning modality. Suddenly somebody is saying that you have to stop coming to class and sit in your home and do e-learning, e-activities. Very difficult, and we have to prepare our material. We have to upload it on the web or on the different kind of mode of transmission. A lot of problems, and suddenly you are putting us into a problem. Finally, you must have all been experiencing this. Institutions have become learning organizations. Suddenly, after running the institution for 50 years, suddenly you find that you are learning new things. You are undoing all old things and learning with new things, and you find that it is very difficult because to learn new things you don't have the infrastructural facility available, becoming very difficult. So these are some 4 or 5 challenges at a broader level. At a broader level, these 4 challenges we have. And another important is the infrastructure and technological landscape for learning into an online learning process. You don't have the infrastructure, technology landscape, they're not available at all. And most of the HIEs are unaware of educational technologies that are available. In fact, some are also unaware that there are a lot of e-learning portals where you can log in and get yourself, a free certificate or a free classes you can take, and then you can earn a diploma or a certificate. Even though awareness is there, people are not able to do it. But now is the time that people have to compulsorily take up these additional courses. Otherwise, it will become very difficult for them. Okay, because this coronavirus is not going to go in another 1 month or 2 months. It is going to stay with us, and we have to learn to stay along with it, and then continue with our academic activities. We are not talking about other aspects of the life. We are only talking about the higher education activities that are going to be there. Then there are issues related to maintain high degree of sanitation throughout the year. So this is a huge problem. Now, how do I sanitize my classroom? How do I sanitize my teacher's room? How do I make sure that the student who come to the institution is hygiene, is having no problems? How do I manage all these things? So first of all, I don't have financial support. I don't have human resource support. In addition to this, now I need to see that my institution is hygienic. It is sanitized, and I should ensure that there is a safety. Otherwise, students will not come to my institution. This is a huge burden on the institutions to ensure that sanitation is happening throughout the academic year. Second important challenge is convincing the faculty members to adapt to online mode of interaction. I said that from ages we have been using chalk and board, and now we are trying to use an LCD presentation or a PPT presentation. But now suddenly we are trying to say that use a Zoom application to teach online, use a Google Meet to teach online, use a Skype to teach online, and people are just surprised. Maybe many of us, including me, might be hearing all these terms and technological names for the first time in our life, and very difficult to convince people to and they should have the ability and willingness also to adapt to online teaching. Admissions again is a huge problem. Student enrollment techniques have to be, new kind of techniques have to be evolved. You can use a Facebook, you need to use a WhatsApp, you need to use a different kind of methods to talk about admission, because today the old age methods are not happening. Today you have to think about new techniques to ensure that students enroll. And you have to, next important challenge would be the training the existing soft assets. Everything will become soft in terms of using internet or the computer. It will all be no hard copy, no writing on the board, no notes. Everything will be in the soft copy. You have to have tech savvy facilities and faculties. You have to recruit new people. Then what happens to the old people who have been there with us? So you have to relearn a lot of things. That would be a big problem because sometimes age is again an issue where we don't want to learn new things. Like I might find difficult to use a Zoom application for conducting class. I need to have a lot of supporting staff. These are all going to become a huge issues over a period of time. Managing cost is going to be another, like I told in the previous slide, broader challenge is to be cost sustainability of the cost. How do I manage my cost? Because fees are not coming, fees are stopped. Government funding has been stopped as of now temporarily because government is busy handling this pandemic, and everybody is into that. All departments are into that, and you don't find people to help us with funding and all those things. And next one is called, we have to introduce new courses which can be taught online. Without these new courses, people are not going to come. So create an e-platform is another important challenge. So basically trying to tell that there is going to be a paradigmic shift, which is inevitable. Whether we like, we have to shift ourselves, and it could be a paradigmic shift because we are not going to be old. We have to regenerate ourselves, reorganize ourselves, research ourselves, and we have to come as new, because there is a threat of low admissions. If I'm, as my institute, I'm not going to give an e-platform learning to students, then students will not come to me. Okay. Closure of institution is an again big issue, because institutions which are going to offer e-courses with a lot of facilities, infrastructural facilities, students are going to be attracted there. It is like some banks you might have seen, like banks which are not being able to adapt to new technology, like opening ATMs on online transactions, are now getting closed and merged with bigger banks. Similarly, this will also happen to higher education institutions, where a lot of institutions will get closed because people don't want to come to you. The same course is being offered online by some other institutions and being taught by some eminent faculty. People would go there. Why come to our institution? So there is a threat of low admission, and there is a closure of institution also. So people have to be gear up and try to see what is going to happen in the coming days. So without that, a lot of problems would be there. Like I told, low admission would be there, and it is not profitable, or it is not viable to run an institution with a very low admission. And because you have to pay the salaries, you have to maintain the whole institution. So there will be a lot of problems associated with it, and end up in closing of the institution. So in coming months, coming years, you might see a lot of institutions might end up closing, because there are no students, no takers for our courses, and e-learning would become a modality. E-platform modality would be one of the best modality. People would just sit at home and try to take up different courses. So another stakeholder in this is the teaching fraternity, that is going to be severely affected. Okay, so the most evident impact on the teacher is expectation, if not the requirement, that they need to teach in virtual modality. So teachers have to be updated. There's an expectation from the teacher that he has to use a virtual modality for teaching purposes, and for that he has to get ready. Most significant challenges for teaching fraternity or the faculty today is that the low student engagement. So there is no control about how the student is going to engage with the faculty, because there is no face-to-face interaction, and the student is sitting somewhere, the faculty is sitting somewhere, and the engagement is also
Sir, we're getting your voice, sir. Can I request to Vinod Sambrani, sir? Is it audible with you, sir? Dear participant, just wait for another 30 seconds. We'll come back to the point. It is a request to Vinod Sambrani, sir. Is it audible with you, sir?
And you need to find new technological aid which supports puzzles, games, or quiz. Otherwise, the students will not be engaged with you for a longer time. You will get bored. It will be monotonous. You are only speaking from one side. There is no interaction. So he has to engage them, and he has to use technology in terms of puzzles. He has to use puzzles. He has to use online games, and have to keep them engaged. And today they need to be well versed with the new trending concepts like big data analysis, business analytics, digital marketing, and other things like this. Otherwise, the age-old subjects will not work. Okay, and low and irregular attendance, lack of attention by students, fear of technology. Okay, obviously fear of technology is again a very big issue. We try to see that. Poor internet connectivity, most of the cases, the added pressure of the household. Okay, and all these things. There's also a problem with pay reduction, because now you might find that you don't have to come to the institute, you don't have to sit in your office, you can sit at home and work. So there's pay reduction could be another one. Then there could be layoffs also. A lot of layoffs would be there. And some more of the problems are that stress is a huge, another important thing that is leading to stress buildup with faculties, is that you're under continuous monitoring. Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? What is your pronunciation? What kind of classes are you taking? You're under continuous monitoring, both by student community, by the parents community, by the management, and you are open to the whole world at large. Earlier, you used to take class in the classroom, and only you and your students used to be there. and now the whole world is looking at you, okay, and parents are looking. Maybe in fact there was one news in Bangalore where the parents were very annoyed because the school teacher was not able to pronounce properly. She was not able to write properly on the board, and this was available visible to the parents, to the to the public at large, and there was a huge huge uproar in the they went to the school, complained to the management saying, how are we paying so much of fees and your teacher cannot pronounce properly, she cannot or he cannot speak English properly. So there was a huge uproar. Okay, but we need some time to adapt to this online method. So continuous monitoring would lead to stress build up, or you're continuously monitored by a lot of people, and you feel that you have been everybody's eyes are on you. Another important stress is like teaching material, like it is your intellectual property, and you feel that this teaching material or material which have been researched and brought it may be copied and uploaded on various portals like YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, and without my knowledge it is being circulated elsewhere. Sometimes my data has been extracted and has been used somewhere else. I'm not aware. So most of the time I would be worried about these things. So it also leads to some kind of stress where I'm worried whether my material is being used properly or not. English being the language of internet leads to distraction, and people are not able to focus because your content is all in content on the internet is all in English, and local languages is again is a hurdle. You can't find. I cannot expect the Zoom to be in Kannada or in Marathi or in Hindi or something. It has to be in English only because it is used across the world. We cannot develop. So people have to in India. People have to come out with our own technologies so that we can use our own languages in as a medium of teaching. There would be a lot of techno stress because you need to learn new technology and continuously seek help from others. For example, I think we all saw that video is coming, audio is not available, audio is available, video is not coming. If both are coming, then there is some other noise. So I think Google Meet has come up with new technology to reduce the the noise that is coming behind when we are in a group meeting and all those things. So the light is improvising. And for example, how to share screen on Zoom or Google Meet or Cisco WebEx is a huge. I never knew, so I had to do some experimentation, do some research, seek somebody's help. So there is always this. The older faculties would find it very, very difficult. They need to have some kind of continuous assistance all the time. Okay, and people assume that you're available when you WFH, work from home. People think that you are always available. They don't think whether you are having your personal life. They just ask you to come into meeting morning 7 o'clock, maybe night 10 o'clock. This leads to social issues. So COVID has also led to a lot of stress on the minds of the faculties. Faculties are going to be this thing. Hello, am I audible now? Hello. Hello.
Sure, sir. It is audible with us.
Okay. Okay.
Please continue.
It's going well. If you have any problems, I think it's going well. Hello.
It's well going, sir.
It's good. It's good, or it's okay? No, I hope so.
It's very good, sir. Please proceed.
Okay. Okay. So next important stakeholder, very important stakeholders are the student community. Okay, they are the very important stakeholders because all these higher educations faculties all are there because of the student community only. So now let us try to see what are the challenges that the student communities are facing. Is major teaching interruption in the final part of their studies, experiencing major interruption in their assessment. So assessment and their final studies have been stopped. Those who were in the final semester almost trying to finish have been in turmoil. For example, at my own institution, they had finished their syllabus and they had gone for this concurrent project, major concurrent project for 2 months. And this lockdown and all happened, and they are now stuck at home. They don't know what to do. So we have told them do online projects, online internships. So a lot of companies are now giving online internships. So you can take a lot of online internship to work on that, and then send your PPT, send your PDF file to our email ID, and we will do an online Viva. but even there, that also has not been materialized. Still, people are worried how to go about these kind of things. They are worried. They face issues on connectivity. One is internet connectivity, another one is a power supply. And you all know that only 40% of the population of India is wired. Rest 60%, if you are taking an online class, out of 100, only 40 people are attending your class. What will happen to the other 60? Are we not being, harsh on them? Can we, how can we expect them to get all these facilities? 60%, 60 people are suffering. And I can give an example. One of my students who stays in Sirsi, in interior part of Sirsi, has to walk 2 kilometers to get internet connectivity. And if I'm engaging a class at 10 o'clock on online modality, and you expect him to walk 2 miles to reach to get the internet connectivity. And what about power supply over there? Huge problems. We are all having a lot of practical problems. Even UGC has told that you should go for 75-25% modality, teaching modality, 75% offline and 25% online. But this 25% is going to be very difficult. Practically, a lot of problems would be there. Of course, now Jio has made it possible that a lot of people are connected through the Jio. There is a lot of interruption during class hours, low span of attention because behind the family is there, somebody is doing work and you can hear them, and students get affected. Issue on doubt clearance, and you are getting a class of 50 or 60 and you don't get a chance to clear your doubts. So again, it builds up to stress. You just have to sit and it's a monotonous. Continuously you are listening to a person, there's no exchange of ideas and all. Low practical insight. You cannot give huge example. You cannot bring props into the classroom like the way you used to bring in the class and then talk and discuss. You cannot have one-to-one interaction properly. Face-to-face interaction is missing. Deterioration of psychological state due to negative news and events. Lot of negative news and events are happening. Psychologically, students have been demotivated. They don't know what to do. Parents are demotivated. Right information is not available. All negative news and events are happening. Fear of losing scholarship or funding from the government or from the institution. Students are, if they are not filling the form, they are not getting scholarship. So these are some of the challenges the students are going to face. Students in rural area might not have access to smartphones. Okay, and net connectivity is again a problem. Like I already told. Students who are under below the poverty line are deprived of these gadgets. Now suddenly you are asking us to get me a laptop. Where will I get the laptop? Even if I get the laptop, government is giving laptops. Where will I get the power? Power supply is again a huge problem. Even if problem of power is there, what about internet connectivity? So rural places, internet connectivity is a huge problem. So a lot of practical problems would be there, and students are going to be stressed up a lot. Change date of test and exams have led to confusion and stress. All studies have been transferred online. So tests and exams have been transferred. There have been a lot of confusion related to tests and exams, entrance exams. A lot of people wanted to join higher education, like PG courses and all. All entrance exams have been stopped, and all tests. PUC2 people want to take entrance exam for CET, JEE, NEET. All have been stopped. Okay, and people are in turmoil. They don't know what to do. Entrance exams of several universities and competitive exams have been postponed. Uncertainty of their future because they are not clearing their colleges and all those things. Fear in the mind of withdrawal of job offers from corporate due to current situation. Some people have already got selected through campus interviews. So a lot of the companies are withdrawing their job offers. Financial cost and burden to them. Okay. Another important challenge is concern on employment opportunity and internship. Repayment of education loan if you have any. So you don't have job and your interest is building up and you have no job because of this COVID-19, and bank says whether COVID-19 or not, you have to pay your interest. So repayment of loan, and you have to compromise for underpayment or no job, non-desired jobs. Jobs are not there, but you still have to do a job. So you have to take up a job which underpays you, which you are not interested. That would be another concern for the student community. Another important concern, very important concern, is that students who are going to graduate this year will face a world which is crippled economically by pandemic. The economy itself is crippled, and even if you have good marks also, jobs are not there because economy itself is crippled because of the pandemic. So students are worried. How will I face the new? How will I face the world when all this comes down to normal? How will happen? Will I get a job or not? All those things. CMI, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, says that the unemployment is likely to reach by 30.9% by the end of April. So unemployment would be again a huge problem. Students would be facing, like CMI has already told, it is about 30 to 30%, 39%. Then another stakeholder is the higher education institute, the regulatory bodies of the higher education. They are basically concerns are end-term examination and results, entrance exams, admission processes. They are all worried about these. Time to time, UGC and state government are issuing notification regarding completion of syllabus and conducting of exams. But like I told before when we started this slide, nothing is fixed. Every day new things are happening, new numbers are coming up, virus is acting strange, and new cases are being spiked up every day. So again, putting everything in the cartwheel, and even government, UGC, whatever they issue notification become obsolete within next 2 days because things have changed suddenly. So again, there's a huge turmoil. Even the regulatory bodies are confused what to do and what not to do. Any kind of failure in this regard shall severely affect the state of higher education. So higher education is going to get affected because of all this, any failures. So you fix a date, students are ready to come, but again you change the date. Then this builds to stress up both at the government level, both at the student level also. So road ahead, some two models have been given by academicians and researchers, and they say that this how to be prepared. If this is going to happen, so you have prepare, you have to cope up, and you have to recover. Preparing is basically starting with a response plan, and so that you come with some strong ideas, fixed ideas, so that you can handle this problem. So coping helps us to minimize the negative impacts, and giving protocols for screening. Then you talk about how to maintain a hygienic environment, how to sanitize, and you need to offer distance learning. Okay, so you basically start coping up with this situation. And the recovery mode is basically the government implementing policies and measures to regain lost time by the calendar of academical calendars, considering the dates of high stake exams, continue with distance learning program. So this is one model that has been given by the researchers and the thinkers. Another model is given by the McKinsey, the consulting firm, which is called as Integrated Nerve Center. And they say the Integrated Nerve Center is a simple, flexible, multidisciplinary construct because it is being made by so many variables. So that's why it's called a construct. And this can be adapted for fast changing conditions. Like the COVID-19 is basically a fast changing condition, and this model can be used. You can take some, remove some, and depending on your own convenience, you can use this model so that you are able to manage this COVID-19 pandemic problem. So there are basically four Ds in this model, and which talks about discover. So one of the D is the discover, is form an accurate view of the situation and how it is changing. Okay, so how to discover what is happening, what is the situation, how to discover. One is to integrate a lot of information from epidemiology, integrate information political, then you integrate information from political scenario, integrate information from social social and economic information. You integrate all of them, then you come to know what is happening exactly. Take inputs from a lot of people like students, parents, alumni. Then you have other stakeholders in your institutions. You take inputs from them so that you are able to discover what exactly is happening. Then you need to decide what to do quickly. what to do quickly so that don't have to wait for all the facts and figures. They might not be available also. So immediately decide what to do with the available data so that we can keep changing as and when it is needed. Otherwise, you'll say that I will wait until I get all the data and then I will decide. Then it is going to be wrong. So whatever information is available, based on that, quickly decide what to do. How to, for example, we decided let us close down, lockdown, so that we can stop the chain of COVID. So decide quickly and take action so that in a crisis, good now is better than perfect later. Whatever we do now is good. I don't want to wait for being perfect in the later stage because that would be too late. So decide and do whatever quickly. Third important D in this model is basically design. Design a portfolio of actions, immediate and strategic. So what will this happen when we do this kind of portfolio of actions? It will decrease false hopes. It will maximize speed. It will provide a method to install and execute executable models of action. So you need to do this kind of activities. Next one is to deliver solutions in a disciplined and effective way. See, whatever you have planned, you have to design, you have to deliver them in a disciplined and effective way, because a small failure can lead to a bigger ones. So institution must get ahead of this events and react skillfully and strategically. So like I told, these two models we can use, or government should use, institution should use. So either you go and use this model where you say you prepare, you pop up and you recover, and the cycle keeps continuing all the time. So this is one model you can use. Another model is the McKinsey Integrated Network Center, which you can use, where you have got these four Ds. And I told it's a construct because it has got a lot of stakeholders, a lot of variables. So I will show here some important this thing. I have this model which okay. Now this is how the COVID-19 nerve center action looks. So you can. So I hope this is visible to you all. So this is a model that is being given by McKinsey, and these are the stakeholders, like I already told, and there are many stakeholders. So institution at our level, in our country, we can take these and try to work on these. Any of these, either 1, 2, 3, or 4 will work for us. 1, 2, 5, and 6 will work. We can remove the rest of them. So these are two good models which we can use for
Sorry for the interruption. It is a request to the Samrani, sir.
Am I audible?
Sure, sir. Audible, sir. Please continue, sir.
Audible, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So coming to the last few slides, which I'm saying, preparing for tomorrow. So after COVID, post-COVID, what we are supposed to do? So these are few of the points that has been given by UNESCO. UNESCO has come out with some perspective, and they say that across the globe, people should follow these guidelines, basic guidelines. And it says, I have some basic principles from preparing for tomorrow. One is ensuring the right to higher education to all people within a framework of equal opportunities and non-discrimination is the first priority. So take everybody together, okay, and do not discriminate with people because you have both the urban and the rural kind of people, and ensure the right to higher education to all people within a framework. So whenever you are getting for policy decisions, you see that all people are taken in together. Leave no student behind, because you might see that inequalities are already there. This might become more also. So make sure that you leave no student behind when you create policies and other things. See that now you have come with a policy that do online teaching then you find that a lot of 60% of the people don't have internet connectivity, and then how are you going to take everybody together? So leave no student behind. Come out with a policy, see that inequalities are not increased. As of now, there are a lot of inequalities, but see that they do not. There are new inequalities that could create a lot of problems. So review current regulatory framework and policies to ensure structural measures and see that education is a continuum process. So don't break the continuity of this thing. See that it's a continuous process and see that the regulatory framework and policies should ensure that the education is continued properly. Prepare in time for resumption of face-to-face classes. Make sure that slowly face-to-face classes will happen. See what steps need to be taken, how to maintain distance, how to maintain hygiene, how to sanitize your classrooms and all. So take some time to resume your face-to-face classes. So the resumption of face-to-face activities of higher education should be seen as an opportunity to rethink and extend, possibly redesigning the teaching and learning process. So like already higher education, UGC has told that 75% offline teaching, 25% online teaching should happen now of the 100%. So rethink, redesign the teaching and learning process. Please work on that. The UNESCO says that government and higher education institute create coordinative mechanism. They all coordinate. There should be coordinate between the higher education and government. Coordination should also include student, parents, alumni, and other stakeholders. So earlier only all of them were independent. Now the situation requires that you should coordinate together. So government should take coordination from HIEs. HIE should coordinate with student, faculties, parents, alumni, and all these people. So this is what the UNESCO has given some 7 guidelines for this thing. And then what should government do? What should government do for tomorrow, that is preparing for tomorrow? Include higher education in the stimulus plan for economic and social recovery. Higher education has to be given primary importance. We cannot only say industry and other things should be given primary importance. Higher education should also be included in the stimulus plan for economic and social recovery. Very much important, very much needed. Okay. Forge a national consensus for a strategy for fostering recovery and innovation in higher education. So there should be a lot of innovation that should happen in the higher education. We cannot go back to our old methods. Provide a clear regulatory environment when reopening classroom that generates security. Make sure that
I request to Vinod.
the regularity. Yes, sir.
Sir, is it audible with you?
Yeah, please, sir, please.
Sure. Please continue, sir.
Just another 2-3 slides, sir. I will finish it off. Then what should HIE should do? Higher education, what are the plans for them? So anticipate long-term cessation, focusing effort on ensuring teaching continuity, guaranteeing equity, generating governance mechanism, monitoring efficient support. Promote internal reflection on renewal of teaching and learning model. So these are the guidelines that have been given by UNESCO to government, to higher education. Not talk about student. There is a lot of
It is a request to Vinod Samvarane, sir.
lot of courses freely available. Okay, and a lot of new areas of learning in digital marketing, data science, e-commerce, financial analysis, online tutorials, house farming, gig economy. Gig economy is one that you can take up multiple jobs. There's no permanent kind of work. You are on a contract basis. You can take up more number of jobs at the same point of time. For example, Ola and Uber car drivers, they work for Ola and Uber also, and they also work for their private customers also. So they are not fixed to one employer. They can employers, or they can take multiple projects. So this gig economy is going to happen. Faculties tomorrow will not be full-time faculties. Faculties can work in different colleges. They can take up an assignment, finish that, and go away. So this gig economy is going to be coming in a big way in future. The lines of Jack Ma, who is the CEO of Alibaba Group, he said, staying alive in this year is the highest priority. Whether it is higher education, whether it is economy, it is political, economical, social. Forget all those things, profit, loss, forget all those things. Staying alive itself is a big challenge. Okay, so Jack Ma says that, even Ratan Tata also said that this year, see that you are just alive, safe, and healthy. Thank you, and for giving me this opportunity. I would like to thank Professor Kokat Noor and his team of people like Hanumant Kamble, sir, Mr. Ganiger, Ashwini S, and Shulila and Chetan Raj for giving me this opportunity to have a discussion with you. I think we had more than 1 hour of discussion on impact of COVID-19 on higher education. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Thank you very much, sir, for a detailed, informative, and an in-depth analysis of the situation.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
We have a couple of questions from the participants. I would like to bring it to your notice, sir. So the first question is, out of the two models discussed,
yes, sir,
which one is a better one? Which is the better model?
Sir, like I told, both the models. See, like I told, McKinsey model might not work in our country. It is more specifically designed to an American kind of environment. So I told in the lecture only, I told that depending on the situation, we have to modify these two models, sir, which is require how it suits to us. For example, the first model where I said recover, cope up, and prepare, cope up, and response could be a very good model where we all can.
Yes, sir.
Whatever required can be required things we can take up. Even the McKinsey model also is very good, sir, and we can take what all we want from that and use it for us. Hello.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that answer, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, sir.
With the onset of this COVID-19,
yes, sir.
There is a notion of questioning the very system of examination.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
People have started to question the system of examination. Like, do we really need to have this kind of exams?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Why not think of education as a means of earning knowledge?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. This discussion has been coming up for quite some time. That why should we have exams and all? Western countries, there is no kind of exams. Like they have their assignments and other things. Based on that only, they grade the students and send. There is no point. There is no idea of writing a 3 hours exam in Western situation. But in Indian context, we need to upgrade ourselves. Now we need to change that mindset, that a student has to write a 3 hours examination and then get grades. So this mindset has to change over a period of time. I think it is going to change because now most of the courses will be offered online, and you have an online in a small exam in not 3 hours or something. It's a multiple choice, could be an exam, and you will be graded. I think things are going to change, and people would now students would now look out for options where they can go on online rather than coming for a 3 hours for 1 year classroom. In the same time, they can do multiple courses also. Now UGC has also given them permission to do multiple courses. So you can do multiple certificate courses, and people would stop coming to institutions, like I told, if you don't offer them an online e-learning platform, and exams would definitely take a backing on this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
And then, sir, we have seen that on the labor front there is a pay reduction and a lot of layoffs have been happening.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Many people losing their jobs or working for a reduced salary. So
yes, sir.
Sir, how this definitely is going to have its impact on education, because many parents may refuse their kids from attending college. So how?
Yes.
What are those?
Yes, sir. Like I told, this is going to be a big problem because parents are afraid how to send the kids to school. Even adults are also don't want to come to colleges because they are all worried, sir. So it's in the hand of the government and the institutions to make sure that the infrastructure that we are offering are sanitized and they are hygienic, well maintained, and all those things. And labor is again a big issue. People are not going to be available. They are all gone back to their native places. They don't want to come back, and they are happy to work with at a lower salary also than coming to a metro city like Bangalore or Bombay and other places where they have to suffer. So there will be definitely lack of manpower also, and you'll also find lack of manpower which are tech savvy also. So that is also going to be a big problem. So salary and all those things, people will lose jobs. Salary will come down. People have to take jobs which they don't like. This all are going to happen, sir. So slowly things will fall in place. We cannot now suddenly say, like I told, everything is today. What I take a decision tomorrow, it is not usable tomorrow. It has become obsolete because things are changing so quickly. Yes, sir.
Sir, the final one, sir. The last question, sir. Suggestions to teachers.
Suggestion teachers should be more.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir. Teachers should be more, should use more of technology like simulation and in all those while teaching. They should be more student friendly, sir, because now they are not meeting into a classroom and all those things. So they have to come out with some mechanism where they cannot, they have to use asynchronous mode of teaching where they upload their material on the web. And students can download it whenever it is required for them. So it's going to be a huge stress for teachers also because they have to prepare their material new. Yes, and like I told, they would be under a lot of stress also, sir, because now it was only in the classroom that a lot of things were used to happen between the teacher and the students. Now the whole world is looking at him. Probably when I'm doing my class here, probably so many people are watching now, which was not happening earlier, sir. Yes. So today parents are also watching what the teacher is teaching. Parents are also interested to know. Actually, in school, what is happening is in schools they have started online teaching, and along with the student, the parents are also have to learn, sir. Now, parents also have to see the videos and teach the student. So this is a problem. So teachers are to prepare a lot, sir. Teachers would be in great. They have to upgrade themselves. They have to be very tech savvy, sir. Now we cannot say I'm not going to use online mechanism and all. Teacher have to be definitely upgraded themselves with new subjects, new courses. New knowledge, everything has to be updated. Yes, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, because we usually